Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Winter Haven City Commission meeting for the 27th day of May, 2025 at 6 p.m. We will be led in an invocation by Reverend Weber from First Presbyterian Church. We'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Vanessa Castillo, MMC City Clerk. Please stand if able.
Do roll call.
Let us pray. As we enter this time and space to discern the needs, hopes, and dreams for this community, please grant to this gathering good conversation, good discussions, and decisions. For the leaders of this community, let them remember this sacred call as they engage with the matters of the day. For community members present, give them ample voice and engagement with the process. Please be with us all this evening, so as we walk out these doors, as the words echo loudly in our ears, well done, good and faithful servant. In your holy name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor, you want to do a roll call first
I should.
before we go down?
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Dollison. Commissioner Mercer.
Here.
Commissioner Dantzler.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Yates.
Here.
And Mayor Birdsong.
Here. Yes, tomorrow. Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We have one proclamation to present this evening. This is Community Action Month proclamation, and I'll invite Pahoa Lee Yang to come to the podium to receive, and I'll read the proclamation. Proclamation reads as follows: whereas community action creates pathways to prosperity by helping hardworking families achieve economic independence rather than keeping reliant on government assistance, and whereas community action is built on innovative, responsive, and efficient programs that are uniquely tailored to meet local needs, and whereas community action delivers high-impact, cost-effective results that generate a significant return on investment for local communities, and whereas community action invests in private sector job creation and career training, ensuring that communities grow through free market solutions, and whereas community action agencies, or CAAs, are trusted pillars of the community that engage volunteers who donate their time to advance local progress, support working families, and contribute to lasting community success. And whereas community action programs are both necessary and popular, delivering effective, high-quality assistance that strengthens community resilience and fosters local prosperity. Now, therefore, Nathaniel J. Birdsong, Jr., Mayor of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, does hereby proclaim May 2025 as Community Action Month in the City of Winter Haven in recognition of the hard work and dedication of all Winter Haven community action agencies. In witness whereof, he is hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, to be affixed this 27th day of May, 2025. Signed, Nathaniel J. Birdsong, Jr., Mayor. Attest, Vanessa Castillo, City Clerk.
On behalf of the Agricultural and Labor Program and our CEO, Arlene Dobson, we want to truly thank you, Mayor Birdsong, and Commissioners, to your continued support as we celebrate community action this month throughout the United States. And we will continue to provide services to those in the community that need the service the most, and to help them become self-sufficient. So thank you so much.
All right, on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. We'll do one more. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, we do have one additional presentation as noted on your agenda this evening that you can be at the dais for, and that is from Aaron Killebrew Kinlaw, Director of External Affairs, representing Citrus Connection and Lakeland Area Mass Transit District for their annual update.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Mayor, Commissioners, good afternoon, good evening. It's good to be back with you. Sorry I missed last times, but I'm glad to be back with you. Okay, so this is your mid-contract cycle ridership update. So typically I do every 6 months because you are on a now 2-year cycle with us. As far as your transit agreement is concerned, I'm doing once a year. And I wanted to stay out of your budget way since this is not an ask today. So as you can see, you have 8 fixed routes. Fixed routes are our big buses. So when you see the big buses pulling in and out of the terminal back here, that is considered fixed route. And these are all of the numbers. Anytime you see a colored line throughout this presentation, you probably shouldn't see many, but anytime you see a colored line, just keep in mind that that comes out of the city of Lakeland, and yours are all, for the most part, they're numbered. These are your routes and then your ridership per route. The only thing that I will note you on are the 21X and the 17X. Those, although there are a few miles that are within the city limits of Winter Haven, these are not your primary routes. These just go through maybe 4 or 5 miles. So that's why your ridership is so low for those 2. The rest of them are your primary routes, the 30 being the Legoland route, the 15 that goes to and from Auburndale, those kinds of things. Top rated stops, as I will remind you every time I'm here, we cannot tell you where people are getting off. We can only tell you where people are getting on. So if somebody is in Lakeland and they come over to Legoland, I cannot tell you how many people that are staying in Lakeland come to Legoland. But when they get back on the bus at Legoland on the Route 30, that's where we capture that data from our smart cards. So these are your, as expected, the Winter Haven Terminal, which is right behind us. That's your top rated stop. And then it goes down from there. I will remind you for paratransit services, when you see the smaller buses behind us at the terminal, we call them cutaway buses. Those are your paratransit services. TD is what the state pays for. It's the Transportation Disadvantaged Trust Fund that is fully funded by the state. We are one of only 2 states in the United States that has a TD fund that's structured the way it is. And with session being extended once again this year, it's always on the table to be cut. We hope that that never happens. The FPTA pays for lobbyists to go up there and hope that they don't cut funding to the poorest or neediest of our communities, but it is what it is. The ADA service, these rides are your door-to-door transportation for medical needs or education. It goes down in ways of needs. But this, I will remind you that ADA, although you quote unquote pay for it, it is based on your big bus service. So if there's a stop right outside of here at City Hall, anything that's within 3/4 of 1 mile from that stop is ADA eligible. And all that person has to do is call our call center and we will go to their door, pick them up, take them where they need to go and bring them back. Anything outside of that 1 mile, we will not do as far as door-to-door is concerned. Your municipal contribution, these used to be called fair shares, if you'll remember, but there was a discrepancy between FARE and FAIR. So we now call these municipal contributions. Thank you, John, for always working with us on our contributions and our contracts. The map is something new. You guys probably have not seen this before. We have now gone to, one of our former directors always said, pictures good, words bad. So now we're going to pictures. These are your city limits. As you can see at the top, anything that's in red is what your municipality pays for. The green is all other funding. So that would be state funding, federal funding. And then the blue is the route in general. So that's when it moves over to county or what have you, another city. But what the red is what you currently pay for. And I would like to remind you that we go down as far as if one side of the city is Polk County and the other side of the city or the other side of the street is city, we only charge you for the one side of the street, even though there may be a bus stop on the opposite side. I always like to show this just so that you have some sort of reference when it comes to municipal contributions throughout the county. These are based on population. As you know, 10 years ago when I started coming to you and asking for this contribution, we were directed by the county, the BOCC, to go after 20% of what it actually costs to run bus service within the city limits. You all are way past your 20%. Most cities are at 33%. Our board has no expectation of going past that 33% at this point in time. What I will do is point out that places like Haines City and Davenport, they are not up to their 20%, much less their 33% at no fault of their own. That is bus service that was committed to them years ago by the county, and they kind of just got stuck with the bill. We are working on it. Both of those cities are very amicable to work on these with us, but just in case there are ever questions, we do like to show that we're working on it with these other cities. But you, as well as most of the other ones, are at your 33%. And I will stand for any questions. I'm sure that there are some, at least on microtransit.
Aaron, I want to talk briefly, I just want to understand the Legoland route a little bit better, and that throws me into the microtransit. You know, we talked at one time about having microtransit from Legoland straight to downtown, maybe stopping at the hospital or something.
Yes, sir.
But help me understand the Legoland route to where it goes, just help me get that before I ask my question.
Sure. So the Route 30 goes from our terminal here, goes down First Street. It then goes down, oh gosh, it's been a long time since I've lived here. Cypress Gardens Boulevard, out towards that Walmart. It goes into the Walmart parking lot. Correct me if I'm wrong. It goes into that Walmart parking lot, and then it goes out to the mall. And that's, well, it goes to Legoland, obviously. So it pulls into Legoland. It comes out to Walmart, goes into Walmart. It goes out to 27. It goes to the mall. The mall is our transfer point for other services that run along 27. And then it turns around and comes back. That's the one that runs on Sundays too.
The Eagle Ridge Mall.
The Eagle Ridge Mall, yes,
So
sir.
it goes to 27 and goes south to, or does it peel off and go down like Thompson Nursery Road, or
No, sir.
goes all the way out to 27? Goes
To the
south?
mall, to the food court. That's where our transfer point is. And then it turns around and comes back.
And the main stops are Walmarts and what else?
Legoland. There are stops. There are not stops because T. Michael and I talked about stops where those new apartments are going in. I don't know if those are completed yet or not. Hotels and things. If they're not completed yet, we did talk about stops going in at those places along Cypress Gardens Boulevard. But the main ones right now are Legoland, that Walmart, Publix on the other side, Bell's or Glory Days or whatever that is right there. There is a stop at the other Walmart that's closer in town. We stop at the Women's Center on both sides. There's a bus shelter there now.
That's all part of that Legoland route?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It is probably your top rated
Right.
route.
So in my mind, the microtransit, you know, we had a guy or a company come in 2 or 3 years ago and show us one downtown, and we all rode on it. And
Yes, sir.
something Rick Baker was promoting. And it was mainly a downtown microtransit. Is that what you mean by microtransit? Or could we talk about a line that's like an express line from Legoland, stops at hospital, Walmart, and downtown, kind of a 4 stop? Is that what a microtransit is? Tell me what that is in your world.
So we consider microtransit that a boutique service, but also our squeeze. We are working with the city right now on something like what you just talked about, which is more of an express route out to Legoland, hitting some of our food insecurity areas, the hospitals, Walmart's, Publix's, that kind of thing. We are currently working with the city on that. But what we consider microtransit are the smaller vehicles that go to and from somewhere specifically, and then the squeeze, which is our smaller golf cart type service that would just go around like downtown.
This one we drove was sort of high tech. It didn't even have a driver. It set up cameras all around, or
The bubble.
the bubble.
I was here for it. Yes, sir. The bubble. It was
An autonomous vehicle.
an autonomous vehicle. We call it.
Do
a
you
bubble.
guys offer that, or is that one of your competitors? Is that something we could talk about? Because I think that'd be popular in certain times of the night downtown.
Yes, sir. MJ and I have actually talked about EVs. We have not talked about autonomous vehicles. Our company is based on providing public transportation with a human that's driving it, especially with our ADA requirements. If there's somebody that needs assistance getting on or off a vehicle like that. But we have talked about the EVs. We have not talked about autonomous at Citrus Connection yet.
Commissioner Dancer, if I could just offer some additional points on that. So we are looking at a somewhat of a smaller fixed route, kind of a circulator route that we've had preliminary discussions with Lakeland Area Mass Transit District on, and we're considering within our 2 CRA districts in response to some of the feedback that we received during our strategic momentum session, that the biggest challenge faced by all of our medical providers was the transportation barrier. And so we've looked at some preliminary routing that goes primarily through the Florenceville and the downtown CRAs. So I think probably on the north side, say getting from the new Winter Haven Recreation and Cultural Center through town all the way down to the Field House, over to the Walmart that is just east of First Street, and then back up through First Street area and 6th Street. And the route that we've been considering really is intended first and foremost to hit all the medical facilities. So Bond Clinic, Winter Haven Hospital, Central Florida Healthcare, the Gessler or the former Gessler property. It hits shopping centers, Publix, Aldi, hits recreation centers, gets into the neighborhood where we can grab people as well. That's really who we're trying to serve. We have begun to plug in some costs associated with that in our preliminary look at the CRA budgets for Florenceville and the downtown area to provide that service, as well as what might be needed for the general fund for where it gets outside of those districts, which is just a small portion of it. Our thinking was that with respect to getting to Legoland, the transfer station is one of the spaces that it hits right here, behind us. And so that would be an opportunity to make it all the way into Legoland and Eagle Ridge Mall, for that matter, via a simple transfer at the station here. We're still preliminarily looking at that and how does that make sense, and can we budget for that accordingly. In terms of downtown microtransit, we do have funds included within our downtown CRA to provide that service similar to what you're asking for or inquiring about. That would be us acquiring vehicles. They would be electric vehicles, similar to the GEM car is what we're looking at, that can carry 4 to 6 passengers, and then contracting with LAMTED for that service. We had money set aside also through a federal grant program, through the Clean Energy Grant Program, which unfortunately was one of the first ones that was cut under the new administration in the DOGE efforts. So we've been notified that is, I don't know if I'd say it's permanently gone, but it's certainly not active at this point. That would further supplement that. So we're looking at both microtransit to move people about throughout the downtown during peak hours, which would really be weekdays during the lunchtime, and then into the evenings when we have significant activity downtown, and then also that circulator route to try and address getting people to physicians, doctor's appointments, schools, grocers, retail, and the like.
And I'll stop, but the only thing I would just re-emphasize how important it is that these are smart vehicles where you can get on your phone and let them know to come pick you up, where you don't have to wait 30 minutes for it to make a loop. You know what I mean? If it's particularly downtown, if you can get on your phone and say, hey, I'm or find out where it is. Let's use some high tech in this stuff because it's out there. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. And if you can somehow, get on your phone, tap an app, and next thing you know, you can call this vehicle to come pick you up, and you can get a ride in 5 minutes and not have to wait 30 while it just goes this big long loop. That to me makes a lot more sense than other things. So anyway.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Quick question. How long does it take to determine if a route is viable? So if you wanted to start a new route, how long would it have to be in existence to say it's worth it?
We won't give it less than a year. Just because of seasons changing and back in 2020 when we launched Reroute 2020 and then COVID hit, we had only launched it in October the year before. We did the same thing with the squeeze in Lakeland. We launched it in July. No, scratch that. We launched it in the spring where people wanted to walk because it was still nice out and the ridership was dismal. Well, in July, August, September, October, it's now peaking. So we don't give it less than a year so that we can see, ridership versus where people are getting on and then, weather conditions and things like that.
If I wanted to get on at the Cultural Center in Northeast Winter Haven and I want to get to the downtown or the Winter Haven Hospital, what I'm trying to understand and directionally, am I forced to go all the way out to the distribution center before I get to that spot, or?
I have no idea without looking at our
Okay.
website. I have no idea. I don't even know where the cultural center is. I'm sorry. I was born and raised here, but it's been a while.
That's okay, Martin Luther King Boulevard. But so and the map that's on here, you had to it's Route 60, but
Okay.
but
And then get back, you would have to transfer at the terminal.
Yeah.
So the 60 would come back, and that's, I'd like to thank the mayor. The Route 60 is because of the mayor 6 years ago that we didn't have any service out there past like Luzerne Park Road and all those things. But you would have to ride it back to the terminal, get on here, and then you would have to transfer to go out to the 30 or one of the other ones that goes out that way.
And Commissioner Yates, that's kind of what we're looking at with that circulator route that, and we just looked at a diagram of it today. There would have to be some stops that are added. But it basically just does a loop through the core of downtown and Florence Villa to hit those places. If you wanted to get outside of that core, say out to the Walmart out on Cypress Gardens Boulevard, that you would have to transfer for that. But you could take it from Winter Haven Recreation and Cultural Center and get to Winter Haven Hospital or get to Bond Clinic or Central Florida Healthcare. And on the rotation that it would run, you would have a route back. So it's just running a tighter circle in its circulation.
Still open to the public, but it would run a smaller, which is what exactly you're asking for.
I guess that's what I'm just trying to understand. And as we're studying it, I get that. So just trying to figure out, is there a way to get from Lake Maud to the Cultural Center to the hospital to the terminal, and that overlaps a lot of that Route 60. So could that route essentially eliminate portions of the Route 60 is replaced by this new route, and then you transfer to get on the 60 if you want to get all the way out to the.
Yeah. I think it becomes a question of efficiencies within that, because this Route 60 goes out to Villas at Lake Smart. The route that we're contemplating for this circulator didn't go that far. And so if you take away from one route, how does that balance out in efficiencies? And then also is you take a more compact circulator route and you make it longer, then your time efficiencies within that become longer and your frequency of routes become shorter or less.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to figure that balance out. And again, I go back to what we discussed in the session we had earlier this spring, to hear from the medical community that was their big concern. And when we looked at it, there's a way to do this, I think, that hits pretty much all of those facilities. Certainly within the core of downtown, Women's Hospital, Winter Haven Hospital, the FSU residency facilities there, all those it's nice and compact. And there's also the opportunity to hit some grocers to help with, people that are challenged in getting food.
Yeah, I think that, as I see it, and not to keep bringing up the same thing, and I get we're studying it. So if we had that route that because you don't want to necessarily go all the way out to the distribution center if you don't have to, But I think if we had those core routes of the Florence Villa CRA that connects down into downtown, and then you also had the downtown CRA route that connects the field house and Walmart, and that way I think we'd see much more utilization. And so I look forward to seeing what comes of the studies.
All right. Anyone else?
I guess the data, demographics, who's who's the average rider? I mean, what is that? Who is that person per se? I mean, is it people to work or, just kind of to break down a little bit of that? I mean, who's riding these buses primarily?
So we do a survey every summer with our interns that walk around our terminals with iPads to ask that question. 88% of our ridership is for work. And they don't have access to a personal use vehicle. They may have a parent or an aunt or an uncle at home that have a vehicle, but they don't have access to a personal use vehicle. But now with some of these younger college kids, some of them don't even drive. They haven't even gotten a permit yet. So we have found that as we keep going with this, especially as we get bigger, that it's some of those too that are just trying to get to and from college with their skateboards.
Aaron, does the numbers that you gave to the commission represent, does it include students? Because your students do not pay to ride, correct?
Yes. Well, yes, sir. As a whole, yes, sir. So Polk State, the Colts program is the school board program. That's all of your high school kids, but it doesn't include charter schools. It doesn't include middle schoolers, although you're allowed to ride our system at 8 years old. But it doesn't include like New Beginnings, all of those.
But those that are riding for free through those programs, are they captured in the ridership numbers that you have on the screen now?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, those are separate, broken out by UAPs. So those are crazy numbers. And I can get those to you too and share those numbers. But like Polk State in and of itself is like 60,000 rides a year or something.
So I think that's important
Yeah,
in that
yeah, and
if it
very-
doesn't have those free student rides
Yeah.
within there, and that could be a big chunk of additional ridership within there.
A few years ago, we were concerned, we had a lot of concerns about persons trying to get to and from work or to grocery shopping, that kind of thing. A lot of people were, being hijacked by individuals that were giving them rides but charging exorbitant rates, particularly those in who did not, didn't speak, spoke different languages and had language barriers and that kind of thing. So it was a real concern. And to the point where different routes were added to accommodate many of those people. And this is during the county situation. So it's always been a challenge. And that's what I'm saying. Who are the people riding, so you kind of get a sense of who's really utilizing the services and just how important it is to keep it viable for them.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we have no developments of note. We have no minutes. We have no comments from the audience. We have no ordinances second reading. So we're to the consent agenda. We've reviewed all of these, but City Manager, would you give us a brief overview?
Certainly. You have 4 items on your consent agenda this evening. Logistics Parkway, Florida Department of Transportation Grant G2F94 is simply a grant extension to align the completion date of Logistics Parkway construction with the completion date that was established by Florida Commerce and their grant. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection State Revolving Fund Loan Amendment number 3 is associated with a time extension on that one as well, and that is pertaining primarily to the Harmony Master Lift Station. We reviewed at length the other night the Willowbrook Golf Course Improvement Guaranteed Maximum Price for the construction phase. This is utilizing the funds that were received in the sale of easements to Duke Energy and the prioritization of efforts that are underway at the golf course. Some of that work has already been completed, such as the on-course restroom, and they have lined up the priority projects for the balance of that fund. And the 10D is a lease agreement with the Learning Resource Center for use of the city property on Avenue R Northeast, adjacent to Lake Maud. This is for the operation of the PEP Education Center, which Learning Resource Center does on behalf of the Winter Haven Public Education Partnership. And those are your 4 items under consent, sir.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion to approve the consent agenda as in its entirety as presented.
Thank you. I will close the commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to any item on the consent agenda may do so at this time. Seeing none, close the public hearing, reopen the city commission meeting. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Hearing none. The consent agenda is adopted. Resolution R2506, would you read by title only? City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution R-25-06, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, approving a maintenance agreement numbered BE 136 between the City of Winter Haven and the State of Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, regarding mowing, street sweeping, maintenance of traffic and related matters, as more specifically set forth in the agreement, and authorizing the city manager and other appropriate city officials to execute the agreement on behalf of the city, and providing for repeal of conflicting resolutions and the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, and providing an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager.
Mayor and Commissioners, since 2004, the city's contracted with FDOT for the maintenance of 9 different sections of state highway that are located within the city. This work is performed by our Parks and Recreation Department as well as our Public Works Department. Generally includes large machine mowing, intermediate mowing, litter removal, mechanical sweeping along 16.66 collective miles of state rights-of-way. City is compensated annually for that work in the amount of $62,416. This is a 3-year agreement renewal for a total value of $187,248 over that 3-year period. Staff is recommending the City Commission approve Resolution R25-06 and agreement number BE 136 with the FDOT in the form attached to Resolution 2506 as Exhibit A, authorizing the city manager and others appropriate city officials to execute the agreement and take all other necessary actions thereto. And we're happy to answer any questions you may have, sir.
Thank you. Commissioners, entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion to approve Resolution R2506.
Thank you. I will close the commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to R2506 may do so at this time. Seeing none, close the public hearing, reopen the commission meeting. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Hearing none. Resolution R2506 is adopted. Resolution R2526, would you read by title only? City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution R-25-26, a resolution approving that certain plat entitled Lake Deer Townhomes for filing in accordance with Chapter 177 Florida statutes with specific conditions, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors and establishing an effective date. The general location subdivision is generally located east of 35th Street Northwest, north of Wrecker Highway, and south of Lake Deer. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager.
Mayor and Commissioners, TBHG Incorporated is requesting final plat approval for the Lake Deer Townhome subdivision as depicted on your screen. This is a 51.7 acre subdivision which contains 304 building lots and 10 common lots. The internal roadways are contained within 50-foot rights-of-way, and these will be dedicated to the city. All water and sewer utilities will be owned and maintained by the city, while all drainage conveyances and stormwater management areas will be maintained by the Homeowners Association. A performance bond in the amount of $1,976,237 has been submitted to the city to cover the cost of remaining infrastructure items to be completed, which include earthwork, sanitary sewer, potable water, stormwater, paving, and engineering certification. The Lake Deer Townhouses was developed according to the requirements contained in multifamily residential low-density R3 zoning district. Water service to the subdivision will be from the Winter Haven Water System. Wastewater will be treated at Wastewater Treatment Plant 3, and there is adequate capacities in these systems to serve the subdivision. Access to the subdivision will be from 35th Street Northwest. This is maintained by Polk County and has sufficient capacity to serve the subdivision upon build-out. Staff recommends the City Commission approve Resolution R-25-26. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion to approve Resolution R-25-26.
Thank you. I will close the commission meeting, open a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to Resolution R-25-26 may do so at this time. Seeing none, close the public hearing, reopen the commission meeting. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposes by the same sign. Hearing none, Resolution R-25-26 is adopted. We have ordinance first reading. The second reading will be on June 9th. Ordinance O-25-18, would you read by title only? City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-25-18, an ordinance amending ordinance number O-24-44, appropriation of funds for defraying the expenses of the municipal government of the city of Winter Haven for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2024, providing for severability and the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, and providing an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Commissioners. The city's fiscal policy requires an unassigned reserve fund balance of 17% of the general fund's budgeted operating expenditures. Per the fiscal policy, any unassigned fund balance in excess of 30% may be transferred to capital project fund to defray costs and cover contingencies as recommended by the city manager and approved by the City Commission. In fiscal year 24, the general fund operated with a surplus of $5.16 million, which increased the unassigned fund balance, the available balance, to $23,788,487. This unassigned fund balance, or the unassigned fund balance at 30% of expenditures, is $22,354,190. The unassigned fund balance in excess of the 30% provides a surplus of $1,433,997. Staff is recommending that this amount be transferred to the construction fund and set aside for capital projects to be completed. As you're aware, we are working on the design at present time of Fire Station number 5. We took some of the money from Fire Station 5 when we were in construction of Fire Station 4 to help cover the cost of that project. And so these dollars will be allocated towards the Fire Station 5 construction effort. Again, the financial impact is that per the policy, the current fiscal policy, the general fund will transfer a total of $1,433,997 to the capital project fund. Staff recommends the City Commission approve Ordinance O-25-18, approving said transfer to the Capital Projects Fund to supplement funding needs of Fire Station 5. This is a first reading, and we're recommending it be advanced to second reading.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, second reading will be on June 9th. However, if there's anyone that would like to speak to this particular ordinance, you may do so at this time. All right, we have one new business item. Is Ms. Hill going to present this, or are you?
I'll present this this evening, sir. I do want to recognize Katrina Hill, our Director of Public Affairs and Communications, who helps shepherd our project for grant and aid application review. I'd also like to recognize, I see Mr. Santiago is in the audience, who serves as the chair. I don't see any of our other board members here this evening, but these are individuals that you appointed, and certainly Mr. Santiago can answer questions as need be. Just kind of going back over a few points with this, we've had a number of discussions on grant and aid over the past several months. And in one of your recent meetings, we discussed your legacy applicants to be the Boys and Girls Club of Polk County, Girls Incorporated of Winter Haven, the Learning Resource Center of Polk County, Meals on Wheels of Polk County, Neighborhood Service Center, and the Haley Center. And you had established set amounts that you would like to see those funded at. You had also recommended during that discussion that we increase the total amount available for awards for fiscal year 25-26 to increase by 10%. That gave the group a total of $347,761 to work with. We had 76 applications that were received through our advertisement and solicitation. All of those individuals who applied had to have completed one of our 3 trainings. All applications were reviewed for sufficiency by staff. Where there were items that needed to be further addressed or were incomplete, we gave them an opportunity to do that. All of the applications were provided to your Grant and Aid Application Review Committee. That committee met on May 9th to begin their deliberation and review of the applications. They completed their work on May 16th, was their final deliberations on the applications, and they made a motion to move the recommendations to the City Commission, which passed unanimously. In your fact sheet, you have a table that begins on page 3 of 5 that identifies all of the agencies who are recommended for funding. Again, the legacy agencies are noted in there at the higher amounts. There were a number of agencies that were not funded this year, and that was after a thorough review by your Grant and Aid Review Committee. At the end of it all, their total recommendation represents $347,761, which leaves a balance of $0 from the original budget that you had appropriated for their use in their deliberations. This does align with our strategic plan in the sense of strategy 2.2.2, which is to identify a robust set of resources and partnerships to bring awareness to comprehensive wraparound services available to our citizens. The agencies that are applying for this are very much in line with wraparound services of all sorts. They highlight a lot of the issues that have been identified by the GiveWell Foundation and the United Way in their comprehensive assessment of Polk County that was conducted 2 years ago. So staff's recommending the City Commission accept the recommendation of the Grant and Aid Application Review Committee with respect to the allocation of funds for qualified applicants for fiscal year 25-26. I will say that we will include, this is included in our initial budget deliberations that we're having via my office at this time. My hope is that we're able to maintain that funding level at full. If for some reason that is not the case based upon some major shift in revenues or expenditures within the general fund, then we will come back to you with that information. And I, myself, Ms. Hill, and Mr. Santiago are certainly available to answer any questions you may have.
All right, commissioners?
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, and just for the record, Commissioner Dollison and yourself will need to abstain from voting on this matter, given the First Missionary Baptist Church is a proposed recipient of funds, as you did last year.
Yes.
And the city clerk has given you the requisite Form 8B, I believe, to fill out, file.
It's been done.
So are we carving that one item out, or they're not voting on the entire?
We're not voting.
They're
at
not
all.
voting on the entire thing.
Okay.
We can carve, I mean, it's up to you all, however you want to do
That's
it.
fine. I was just looking for clarity on that. So
Last year we did it, we had a couple different motions last year. If you may recall, you had a motion that determined the $40,000 indications or contributions, and then you had a second motion that approved the recommended.
You also had some
allotments.
leftover money last
Right.
year that you had to make some
Right.
decisions on the
Which-
disbursement of that. to
Which
some
was what the first motion was last year, but then the second motion was to accept the Grant and Aid Application Review Committee's recommendation.
do we want to have a motion first or discussion first?
Probably
have the
it's up to it's probably appropriate to have motion on the floor.
Yes.
generally, but-
Okay. Move to approve item 13A, fiscal year 26 Grant and Aid Award recommendations.
All right, thank you. All right, now we will enter into discussion.
So my question is, and I'm just a little confused because I got some calls on this item, and I did some research on it, and I'm having trouble connecting all of the dots. But that is the Lake Maud Cemetery Revitalization Project. And who actually, so if you do a public record search, and I don't have the information in front of me, but there's a church that is the owner of the cemetery, and there is this group that wants to do the work that's out there. And I don't know that those two have ever connected. It didn't appear to me like that those two entities were connecting, and have all of the families that we can identify that have loved ones out there been notified of what's happening and what's going on. I'm supportive of the project, but I just want to be sure that everyone is aware of what's going on, because it's a cemetery where loved ones are buried. And if people are not aware of what's happening, they may not be in favor of what's happening, regardless of if we perceive it to be good or bad.
I can share that the church does not own the property. There's no listing for anyone that owns property at the present time, to my knowledge. Correct me if I'm wrong, the city manager, that there is no one who owns the cemetery at the present time.
Thank you, Commissioner Dawson. This is an effort that's been underway for a number of years, actually, Mayor Pro Tem. And I'll share with you what I've come to learn through my involvement in meeting with members of the community. So Lake Maud Cemetery dates back into the early 1900s. That land was provided by Dr. Mary Jewett. It was designated as a cemetery. And within the original documents that laid it out, the internal roadways, alleys, pathways were dedicated to the public. The individual plots within a cemetery are sold to the family that owns the plot. At some point after the designation of that cemetery came about an effort by the county, Polk County, to realign First Street or build First Street. And that impacted an existing cemetery that was located in that area. And many of those individuals that were interred in this separate cemetery were disinterred and reinterred into the Lake Maud Cemetery. The city did quite a bit of research into ownership and maintenance responsibilities under City Manager Carl Cheatham back in the late 80s and early 90s, as the cemetery had fallen into disrepair. Since that time, the city has maintained the grounds of Lake Maud Cemetery. We're not involved in any of the internments or any of the records associated with the cemetery. Those were all maintained by individuals within the community. And to the best of my understanding, through members of, it was handed down by church leaders over time, that's who was facilitating that transaction. Since my time here, when I first came back to Winter Haven in the early 2000s, Christopher Darby maintained a lot of those historical documents. Reverend Darby is no longer in the area. Those transferred to at least one, if not multiple other individuals over time. I understand that Mr. Robert Frazier now has those documents. He has met with me on a number of occasions. He and members of a group that is pursuing to more accurately document and record the information on the individuals that have been interred there. The city's ownership of anything within that cemetery at this point is really in question, because the only thing that would have been dedicated to the public back in the 1920s would have been the roadways and the alleys within the cemetery. It's uncertain if bodies have been interred into those spaces. The group that we have met with over the past year, has engaged the University of South Florida that has a program that specifically focuses on historic Black African American cemeteries where there is less documentation or formal documents that really articulate how these came to be and how they're laid out. They use ground penetrating radar and other scientific methodologies to really identify where are the internments, and then referencing that with as much historical documentation as they can find to identify who's in what space. And so they have been working with USF. USF has been to the property. They have begun, the initial work to do the GPR work on the site. And that's the extent of what I can share at this point. Again, the city has maintained this facility for at least, I'm going to say, probably the last 35 to 40 years in terms of landscape. There was a CDBG project that was done to create the fence line around the cemetery, which had fallen into great disrepair in the late 90s. We have looked to see, done as much research as we can to identify ownership. And I don't know if the city manager or city attorney can recall our discussions on that, but it is very unclear who has ownership of that. But I do know that there is a group of residents that are working hard to try and identify really who's there, where are they, and protect that information for historical purposes and in perpetuity.
And I appreciate them and their efforts in doing that. But my concern is that and we're not talking about a lot of money here, and I get that, but we're talking about a cemetery. And so regardless of how much money you're suggesting to put at it, I just want to make sure there's a clear chain here of what's happening. So this money, is it going to go towards repairing headstones, repairing specific plots, or is it strictly roadways, perimeters, and ground scans?
I'll defer to Ms. Hill on that because she's more familiar with the application.
Commissioner, the past grants that have been given to this group have gone toward tombstone cleaning. For this particular project, they anticipate it either going to further tombstone cleaning or also toward costs for things like the ground penetrating radar to try to identify unmarked graves.
Okay. So if I'm a family member who has someone buried in that cemetery and I don't want anybody touching that tombstone, is there anybody reaching out to me to say, hey, this is what we want to do. Are you okay with it? Or are they just arbitrarily going through and saying, this one looks bad, we're going to fix it?
I can share that when a similar question came up at the committee meeting, they said that they're also working with a historian to try to find those committee member or those family members to reach. I believe from that discussion that's part of the challenge right now is there aren't adequate records to necessarily know exactly who to contact in all those cases. I cannot speak to who they're contacting before they clean any specific headstones because that was not discussed at the committee level.
There was some cleaning that was done with some initial monies that they did have, I guess, in order to identify, at least try to make some identification of the gravesite. A little more history with regards to that too. In 1909 is actually when the original cemetery was off of First Street. And 1924 is when Ms. Jewett gave the property to turn the property over for what she called then a colored cemetery. And the year that we're not sure when the bodies were removed from the original site and placed in Lake Ma. I will tell you this, historically, the founder of our church is actually buried in that cemetery. Probably was originally near in the first cemetery. Historically, the challenge throughout Florida and other places throughout the United States, African-American cemeteries were kind of just a lot of people were buried on personal property, and now some of them have actually even been, in many ways desecrated because they built over top of them, and then whether they're not sure the persons ever were removed from there. One of the effort was done. We're trying to actually ascertain now when that was done by the city of Winter Haven, and when did the city have anything relative to that to at least help us maybe identify. That would be one way of identifying. The big challenge we have is that since 1924, and like I said before, those bodies from 1909 going forward, a lot of them were not identified. We have sent out information. Information has been sent to family members. Some have come out to identify, tried to identify. A lot of them are not identifiable because either through time, some of them were actually buried in the ground, where I think it's reported that probably even a foot of dirt would have to be brought up in order to even get to maybe to be able to properly discover where some of the graves are. So it's a significant effort. It will ultimately culminate in a memorial that we hope that will be placed out there with the names of all the persons that are there, even though their graves are no longer marked. But we know through some of the records that we do have that Mr. Frazier has. I've actually been involved with this personally because Mr. Darby, Christopher, Pastor Darby, his father actually had the records before him. And so going back 30 years before, they used to come out with a probe to make sure they weren't trying to bury on top of somebody. He would stick the probe down in the ground. And some of the graves now where the roadway is going in, and there was a circle drive, I think, in there, barrels have been actually put in some of those areas too. So it's really complicated a little bit now in terms of trying to identify it. That's why having the college, university come over to assist would be really helpful. We have a lot of members in our community who do have loved ones there. I'll give you an example. Mr. Frazier, his grandmother's buried there, who he knew very well. He was young when she passed away, but he knows she's there, but not exactly sure where her grave is. So there are a lot of notables. We got a lot of veterans. Just past Memorial Day, those that are identified out there, we have flags on their graves to want to honor them. And again, some of the early pioneers of this area, African American in particular, that actually settled Winter Haven and Florence Villa. So it's very important. It's very significant to a lot of us who live in the area, and a lot of people that loved ones that are through generations have been buried there. As a pastor, I've buried in that cemetery a few times. Right now, I don't think there's probably many more because having claim or deed might be a little interesting at this point. So we're not really sure how many more spots, if any more, would actually be buried in that cemetery. So that's kind of a little bit of where it is right now, what's going on. So they're trying to really, there's a significant group that's working on this. This is not the first time that's been done. It was done several years ago. And so now it's really an effort to try to make this what it should be. Now, here's the challenge we have, because not by record, there is not listed who the owner would be. So that is a challenge for us, because we want to make sure that whoever that is listed, because we had someone who did go in and try to, through an LLC or whatever, tried to actually claim the cemetery. And that was a concern because the person didn't have a right to necessarily do that. So we're trying to legally, John, figure out how we're going to, kind of maneuver through that, or how we would be able to set that up. Whether it would be through a church or some other organization.
Sorry, so was that the Church of God?
No. That was an individual with the Church of God.
Are you familiar with who the Church of God Bible Way
Yes.
Inc. is?
I am.
So they're the ones right now that have the LLC filed
Correct.
for Lake Maud Cemetery.
Yes.
So are they involved with this group?
They're not. They are and they're not. Let me put it this way. There was conversation with them early on about it, and I think it was interest, but I'm not sure whether or not, I haven't known that, it hasn't been made known to me that the persons are directly involved with it now that are currently working with it. Because all the records are, Mr. Frazier has pretty much all the records on it, on the cemetery. The church that you're speaking to does not have any information on it. It was open in the, you know, as far as you could have went in there and done the same thing, or I could have done that. So that was just a matter of, you know, filing because there's no name particularly attached to it. That's all that is. So all we're saying now is that we don't want, it doesn't belong to any one person or any one entity or group, but it will have to have, it'll have to be listed someplace and in some manner, I guess, and going into the future. So we're not sure exactly how that will be. And that's probably what they're also engaging in legal services to figure that piece out.
I will tell you whether it's relevant or not, but there is a statute 497.284, which talks about abandoned cemeteries and immunity of the city. And it allows that, notwithstanding any other provision of law to the contrary, a municipality which has within its jurisdiction an abandoned cemetery or a cemetery that has not been reasonably maintained for a period in excess of 6 months may take such action as is necessary and appropriate to provide for the maintenance and security of the cemetery. And that's what was done back in the Carl Cheatham days and forward. And in lieu of that, it says no county or municipality, it says further, the solicitation of private funds and the expenditure of public funds for the purposes enumerated are hereby authorized, provided that no action taken by a county or municipality under this section establishes an ongoing obligation. So it carves out a statutory exception for a municipality to help out in these scenarios. And you can spend public monies for certain repairs and maintenance, which we've done.
Well, you can see where the confusion is.
It is.
And,
It is.
and
Very confusing.
so I just feel like, and again, I'm fine with maintenance and scanning and trying to figure out ownership but I feel like if we're going to contribute funds for repairing or replacing or adding tombstones, and if any portion of this, there should be written consent from a family member that's allowing that to happen. And if there isn't any, then there needs to be the process of this is what we've done to try to get that authorization. It can't be done if you set that at 6 months or 12 months or whatever, and there's no reply and we're at that end, then you've gone through that process. Proceed with what you need to do. That's my concern on this item. And I get it's not a lot of money, but we're dealing about graves and loved ones of family members. And in that case,
Yeah, a lot of descendants for a lot of people are there. For example, we understand Dan Larimore, you heard that name before, was considered to be one of the first African Americans actually was brought to Florence Villa. He's buried there. His wife is buried there. There's actually a tombstone with her name on it. And so, you know, there are not a lot of people that are here today or descendants of those individuals that would be able to speak to that. So a lot of it becomes more of a historical nature. And also just the fact of recognizing this is a place where a lot of people were laid to rest, honoring that and respecting that itself. So the memorial aspect of that piece is important for a lot of folks, you know. Like I said, a lot of our early pioneers of our church in the 1880s were buried there. Well, they're buried there now because they were actually removed from around near our church.
can we stipulate the funds to not be used on headstone repair or anything like, if it's ground maintenance or research and those sort of things? And if they want to come back to us for a new request for headstone repair and those things, then they need to come back with that request and have that process in place. And it may be that you can't contact that family. Maybe there isn't, but I want to make sure that we've done our due diligence,
Yeah.
especially given the fact that we don't really know who owns the cemetery. And,
some of it was just repairs because some of the vaults actually had holes in them. And I think to the credit of the church you were speaking to, I think he did send someone out and actually did fill in some of the holes on the vaults that were, just open with holes in them. And so to his credit, he was doing that. So there's a concerted effort. I think there's no challenge there. I think ultimately going forward, I don't know who's dying, I don't use that term, who really wants to own a cemetery, but it's not something that we're particularly interested in doing, or anyone else. I don't know who really wants to do that. I mean, I don't know what the upside of that is, but there is an effort to say that, many of our citizens and people were laid to rest there, and we want to, recognize that and maintain that.
Well, I think it at some degree falls upon if no one else the city needs to own it, if not to preserve the legacy and history of of the community. But that's another conversation for another day. So what I'm asking is, can we put that restriction on these funds that they are used for maintenance and research and ground scanning and not directly impacting a burial site and fixing or repairing the tombstone without that family being acknowledged? Now, again, like I said before, come back if you want to do that, fine, but give us what that process looks like in reaching to that family. Is that?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm not being sarcastic or comical when I say this, but you as a commission can do whatever you want. I mean, if that's how you want to guide them on what they can use those dollars for, you certainly have the authority to do that. That's a condition that you can impose upon anybody. So certainly you have the right to do that. And we'll convey that accordingly.
I think the point you make is that it is a small amount that we're talking about here. What they're talking about doing is going to be cost-wise significant. Just cleaning the graves, that was just something that was done. There's not abundance of them out there, but there's a few that can be seen. I think trying to bring up some of those that are down in the dirt that we're trying to locate. One of the pastors of our church is buried there, and I saw it years ago, and I can't find it today, and it's probably because it's underground. So just being able to, they may have to just level, like I said, bring up some of the dirt. So there's plenty of work that they'll have to do. They're actually also looking for other grant opportunities as well, because they know it's going to take a great deal of funds in order to do that. So this is just more of a, something to assist or to help. And maybe with the legal aspects of it, I mean, I have no problem with them being, specific to that. Like you said, something more to those concerned versus cleaning a grave. And we don't want to disturb anything that any family member does not want done, and we have reached out. Some of them have actually responded. So that effort is going forward. So that's a big part of that is trying to contact as many people as they can.
So is the commission okay with putting that limitation?
I want to ask a couple questions for it, but I'm okay with it. I mean, I just want to ask I want to understand what we're talking about here. So first of all, and you might be the one to answer these questions, how many people are actually, how big is this place? 5 acres, an acre? How big would you say, and how many people are in there?
I think there was supposed to be, was it 700?
I
think it's
honestly don't
700,
know. It's not that big of an area.
700, because there were plots in there for babies as well. And then later they came back and the plots were relatively small, but then they actually made them larger at one point. And like I said, they did bury in some of the areas there was supposed to be a roadway and a circle drive that was actually in there when you see the original plans for it. So it's I guess it's probably about an acre. Is the land
up right now.
Okay, so the way I understand it, and it's a great conversation, very fascinating, and
It's an acre and a half.
acre and a half, and we don't know who owns it but we could potentially maybe determine that if we had some
We
money.
have,
I
we
mean,
looked at it again, under the commission and the city management that was here in the late 80s, early 90s. Then when this issue came up, they did tremendous amount of research to try and find title to that land, who owned that land to no avail. We have reviewed that effort just recently, and we're in no better position today than they were.
Well, John,
30 years ago.
What do you do, John, when you have a piece of land that you can't determine ownership? There's got to be something the courts can do, because this is what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to understand who owns the property, who's actually applying for the money. Do they have legal standing, or what kind of standing do the people that are applying for the money? And how do we fix this problem going forward? How do we figure out a way to find out? I mean, the city is clearly maintaining it, right? We're mowing the grass and doing all that. So are we applying for our money for ourselves to keep mowing? Or what I'm trying to understand is all the controlling interest here on who is applying for this money, and if they have standing to do it. And how do we clear up this ownership problem and maybe give it to Pastor Dollison's church or this other church that Brian's talking about, so we can start collecting these records that apparently get kind of handed around to where nobody really has them, or they do, they're not part of the public. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of how we can fix this problem going forward. I'm not worried so much about the money as I'm trying to figure out, wouldn't this money be well spent to hire some lawyer that specializes in this let's get this problem solved and come up with a plan on how to contact these people.
They're meeting with an attorney.
Who is they?
They're the committee, the current committee.
They are the ones that applied for the money.
It's the Florenceville Association.
Well, yeah, I guess, I don't know if they attaching their name to it or not. Are they actually specifically doing that?
So it's called the Florenceville Association.
Yeah, they're meeting this week with an attorney
Community Association.
to deal
Their
with.
job is to strictly take care of the cemetery. Do they have other roles?
Well, they're dealing with all the above that we're talking about here tonight, but they're also dealing with the legal aspect, and they're meeting with an attorney this week who specializes in this particular area.
There is a legal arm of the legal community that can potentially solve this problem for us.
That's correct. And because what happened in the 1920s, Ms. Jewett basically turned that property over to a committee or to a group of people then during that time, African Americans, when she actually, because she did that twice. You know, she did it in 1909 and then 1924 when she purchased the other property. So she didn't intend to own it. She wanted to basically give that to the community as a place to bury those who are African American.
So is the money, I didn't read the application, so I apologize, but is the money to be used strictly for legal proceedings to try to solve this problem? Or is the money to be used to repair headstones like Commissioner Yates is saying? Is the money to be used for repairing fences, cutting grass? Because apparently we're already cutting the grass. I feel like we need to be specific about what we're going to use the money and who's going to use it.
May I read a statement from their application for you?
please.
Okay, so it is the Florenceville Community Association that applied for their Lake Maud Cemetery revitalization project. They describe it as Lake Maud Cemetery is the oldest burial grounds for Black citizens of Winter Haven. FVCA is currently in the process of cleaning headstones, uncovering buried grave artifacts, as well as securing and organizing records. The Black Cemetery Network is committed to assisting us in identifying the location of unmarked remains, which we will endeavor to identify. At a minimum, our goal is to mark all remains, including those unable to identify. We envision that residents of Winter Haven will be able to find the exact location of graves and those who have long passed. That's how they've described what they would like to do. And their goals and objectives are, they talk more about, as visible from the before and after pictures attached to this application. It is easy to notice the drastically visible difference in the before and after pictures of a couple clean headstones displayed for comparison. So their past grants they've received from the city have been they've cleaned headstones. But when they were here, they talked about the need to pay a historian and do ground penetrating radar as well. So I think they can, from what I have heard from them, they could use the funding however you all stipulate they need to use it. Should you agree to give them funding?
You're using words like we and they. We is the committee that has no experience whatsoever on how to identify people that are buried, but they would actually hire the USF or UCF people to come in there and maybe help them with this, or
many of the people.
They're working with the Black Cemetery Network and the University of South Florida, according to the application.
They've actually already engaged them and. so
Yes,
we-
sir. They've already been on site.
And I will tell you, Commissioner, that the members of the committee have loved ones buried there.
Okay.
Most of them have family members in that cemetery.
And I know this is a very emotional issue, and I'm not emotionally involved because I don't have anybody out there,
Sure,
but I'm just trying to understand. We're using public money. I just want to make sure there's some accountability. And if there's a committee that's formed and they've got standing and they're going to do this the right way, then that's great. Let's make sure that we support them. But long-term, we got to get to the bottom of this. We got to figure out who this ownership is and get it transferred to a controlling interest like a church or somebody that can manage this going forward. Because this problem's going to do nothing but get worse. And when people, you might live in Michigan and know you have a great grandfather down here. And if they come down here, they might get upset if you're disturbing their grave in some way without checking with them first. I understand all the emotional side of this thing. So I'd say we use the money for legal proceedings and ground radar and other things, but I don't know how much more I would do as far as.
Yeah, beyond cleaning, there will be no other disturbing per se. There will not be anything that other than a headstone that may be buried that will be brought up so you can actually see it or put it, in its proper
What does
position.
Brought up means? I don't know
Well,
what that means.
the over time, the headstone has sunk.
Oh, the
into ground.
headstones is all we're talking about.
Right, and so you've got to bring
Bring it up.
so you can
Clean
see
it
it.
so you can read the name.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So that would be one way of identifying who's actually in that plot. So, but again, those persons that are on the committee they have a vested interest because their loved ones are actually buried in there. So, but that legal piece that you said perhaps will be answered when they meet with their legal person this week. And so hopefully they'll have some idea what that may look like.
I can't imagine there being a problem with that.
Just to go back a ways, when I worked here and happened to be with cemeteries over cemeteries, there was a lot of disrepair because it had gone a long time and a lot of, I should say, cracking in the ground, and you could see cracks in the cement. It's shallow graves and things. And so as time has, they have gone down, sunk. Because
Headstones or the
I'm
flat?
talking about coffins, but they were probably wood. And, so it went down, and that's why some of the headstones are sinking, and there's a lot of things that you need to. So they asked the city to take it over, and there were some reasons for that. Some of them were health, because everything's going down, and there were cracks in the ground and things. So the city became involved in it and have been involved since then. So I think what we need to do, what is good is that eventually, even if you locate everybody, you still have to mark it. And so they're going to have markers. They're going to have to be markers on it because you don't want to redo that. Most cemeteries are set up with funds for perpetuity to do that maintenance and things. But when you inherit some of these older cemeteries, they don't have that. So that means that you spend money to get for perpetuity till it's completed or till, everything goes away, I guess, till the world goes away, maybe. But that was part of the plan then, was to get it back into shape. And as you know, now probably there's some settlings in that. So if things need to be moved up, somebody needs to take care of that. And I would say, since the city's been involved with it I came in 96, so I know that since then, the city has taken care of it, and a few years prior to that. So.
The
Is there any-
documentation goes back to 1989 was when this was first discussed with the commission. And I just want to be clear on something with respect to what we do there today. We mow and we clean the fence line. If trees come down during storms, we address that. We don't do anything with actual internments or headstones or vaults or sinking crypts or anything of that nature. We don't touch anything with any of those interments as they have occurred. That the issue with the who owns it is part of, in my opinion, why the historical documentation is important, because the individual parcels are owned by the individual who purchased the parcel either for their own final resting place or for that of a loved one. So if there's 700 plots there, there's 700 likely owners. The only thing that was vested to the public were the internal roadways and alleys. And those were not to the city of Winter Haven, they were to the public, and it was signed for at that time by Polk County. The likelihood of those roads and alleys existing today or not have been, without something having been interred, a person being interred there, is what we don't know. So any claim of ownership, I think the challenge to the city of Winter Haven in that regard would be, is there anything that the city actually owns within it, which would be roads and alleys, if they so exist. Everything else is owned by individuals who acquired those plots for interment of loved ones. So that was the issue that came about in 1989 when the city attorney at that time, Bobby Fagers and Bob Antonello and that team looked at this. You could not secure title insurance on the cemetery, and this went on for a long period of time when they finally decided the only thing that the city can do in that regard is to maintain the landscape to prevent blight.
In conformance with
In
section
conformance with the statute.
497.284.
Well, is there, last question, and then I'll shut up. The committee that's applying for the money on land that they don't own, that the city doesn't own, that is owned potentially by 700 families, is there any controversy are we stepping in any kind of controversial thing over here between anybody on the committee, one church versus another church, one person versus another person, one person wants some done, one certain person not one done? Are we walking into some sort of a controversy?
You don't know that. Well, if one of those 700 families who's still around today finds out that, maybe they want their tombs, you don't know until you have the conversation with these people. And I would suggest that this money go towards figuring out the ownership of this thing, the ground scans, and that's where it stops. And if they can find that out, then bring that back to the commission. And at that time, maybe the city of Winter Haven takes ownership of the cemetery, sets up an account in perpetuity that takes care of that cemetery for generations to come. But we just don't know yet.
Or if they're a local person, like you've named several local names, and they still have family here, they come and say, yeah, we want you to clean our tombstone and raise it up or whatever, then
you've gotten
the permission and you go ahead and do it. Then I don't think you have to come back to us for that. But if it's somebody in Michigan, maybe. But I'm just trying to understand everybody's concern here.
Well, I think that, if you don't pardon me for interrupting while I can still talk, I think Mayor Pro Tem Yates has laid it out very nicely. And I think that you would like for the monies to be utilized for investigatory activities that include but may not be limited to ground penetrating radar, dealing with grave sites with permission of the owners to the extent you can get it.
That's great.
And other investigatory efforts to try to help determine issues pertaining to the overall well-being of the cemetery.
Yeah.
In furtherance of the established goals that the state has invested money in and has established. So I think those are reasonable limitations that can be placed on this particular request. Keep in mind, it's only $5,000. Not that that's not a lot of money.
Next year it can be 10. Next
But,
year it can be 20.
and I think
mean,
the
you don't
information
know.
that's gleaned from this effort should be reported back to the commission. So I think that's reasonable under the circumstances as I understand them.
Yep.
And I would recommend that that be part of the motion. And Mayor Pro Tem Yates made the motion, so he's.
I would amend the motion to include the verbiage that John so eloquently put out there.
Well, I'll work with the city clerk to get the minutes.
The only reservation I have is that none of the committee persons are here who could probably speak specifically to that situation. Now, she read what the request was in that, but it would have been a little helpful there because they will kind of get a little more definitive about where they are currently in that process of what they're doing. I follow some of it, but I don't know all of it. But there are some who are working very deeply with this right now, and can probably give a little more in depth as to where they are with the process and what their ultimate goals will be going forward. Again, it was stipulated in the writing, and I think that was clear as well. But right now, I will tell you, it's going to be quite expensive to do a lot. The partnership with the university is really helpful because a lot of that will be incurred. I think someone's working on a PhD with regards to this project. And that's going to be exciting and interesting to see how that goes forward. Other communities that I've seen have dealt with this issue, and this is not sadly, it's more of a common thing than it is uncommon, that some of them have actually did a memorial where they actually had names that they knew of actually placed on a memorial. Because right now, many of the graves that are out there do not have any headstones at all. So they're totally unmarked. You can see outline of the grave. Some of them we can't tell at all. So there's not a lot of headstones to clean. First of all, it's just a lot of. That's why the sonar or the being able to know if there's actually a something there in that plot.
Would Mr. Fraser's records have that?
Pardon me.
Would Mr. Fraser's
He
records
does,
have
but see
that?
the way the records are designed. Well, the records were that people bought the plots, and we do have names listed there. And there are a lot of names, we got a lot of names that are listed, but some of them were purchased. In other words, you have like XYZ Funeral Home purchased like 10. Even the city of Winter Haven had purchased some graves there too. So it was kind of interesting that there were different, groups that bought them. And a lot of people do that. They'll go out and buy a plot, say they want to buy, this section or whatever. And so their names listed as who bought it, but whether or not who was put in it is what you don't know always.
I get it.
My hope is that these overlays and that this $5,000 is the start of a seed to fix this permanently within this generation, so that the next generations, there's a monument there. We know what has happened, or to the best of our ability at that point, because the guessing and not it needs to come to a finality.
Yeah, and I think this group is going to do that. I don't think their intent is to drag this on. They want to basically get to a place where that can be realized that you just mentioned, and I think that's probably going to be done. I'm hopeful within the next year or so. So at least I'm involved with them. I've done interviews with them recently. They did they're doing a little thing for historical from the city, and which is really nice too, because this is part of what the culture center, some of the aspects of it. Like I said, we got World War I, II veterans there. Like I said, a lot of significant people that are buried in that cemetery.
It's kind of hard to locate people when you get out 4 and 5 generations.
It is.
too.
Very hard.
So, yeah, people move away and they don't,
Of course.
visit.
Yeah,
They
one
don't
young
even
lady
come
came
back.
out. There's a stone. It's actually laying on the ground, but it's in the shape of a cross. And someone had found that, and they actually cleaned that stone, and she realized that was her great grandmother. So, which is amazing.
All righty then.
All right. Any more discussion?
So if I could just clarify, Mr. Mayor, the motion is, Mr. Yates made it, was for the recommendation of the Grant and Aid Application Reviews Committee with the caveat that the money allocated for the Lake Maud efforts, Lake Maud Cemetery efforts by the Florenceville Community Association only be used for investigatory and historical research efforts and cannot address any individual plots without the express consent of the family.
Yes.
And I think to the extent that it's $5,000, that's probably going to go pretty quickly, is my surmise based on some
Keep
of the
us
things
in-
I'm hearing.
keep
But I
us-
think there should be
I-
continued dialogue.
Yeah, keep us informed.
Yeah.
You know, this is, we can't hear about it once in a year. If they've hit big milestones in progress and they need help with something else, come tell
True.
us.
It's a very worthy effort, and I
Very
think,
worthy.
and I think
And
that's
it's-
something
we
that-
got to get to the
yeah.
bottom of it. It's going
Yeah.
to take some time, but we got to get to the bottom of it. We really do.
Well,
I think-
I will say that the group that I met with, is that this group? Very earnest, very much engaged in wanting to better and
course.
understand
That's great.
and respectful to the issues you've identified clearly, given the subject matter. So I think we're all good here, particularly based on what I heard Ms. Hill read from the application. It is too bad that there isn't someone here, but they can come back. This is not anything, no pun intended, set in stone.
We're not pulling this money away from.
Right,
We,
right.
we just want to be respectful to
Right.
every site that's out there.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and that's their intent. Their intent is to do just that, because I think that's the real goal ultimately, is to give honor and respect to those who are interred there.
That's good.
All right. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All those in favor, say aye.
Well, and Commissioner Dollison and Mayor,
We're refraining.
you're both abstaining from voting
Yes.
on this. So the record,
Any opposes? There's
record
no
will-
opposes.
will
It's
reflect.
unanimous.
three votes.
Yes. All right, City Commission liaison reports. Commissioner Mercer.
I attended the Junior League celebration. This was the first time they've ever opened it up to the public. I guess it's always been a private celebration. Attended the Pope Vision Smart Communities meeting, the Public Safety Complex, Station 4, grand opening. That was we got to walk through the fire station and see everything very nice on the public safety side and on the fire department side. Girls Inc., she knows where she's going. Awards banquet, I guess we did that luncheon. The grand opening of the grand opening ceremony of the George Jenkins Memorial for the Boys and Girls Club. What a nice event that was. I mean, as far as the new building is wonderful. Main Street, I attended the Main Street event after that, and then the Winter Haven High School graduation at the RP Funding Center. And it's always good to look out and see half to 2/3 that graduate with honors. It's quite a bit. And I never knew that you could get 4.9 or 8, 9, and whatever percent. That was amazing. You only had 4.0 when I was going to high school, so now you can get way past that. So smart kids.
Yep, that's it.
That's it.
Commissioner Dantzler.
Polk State Girls Inc. Went to that with, I think 3 of us were there for that. AHAC, we had a 2-hour workshop, and actually, you know how these workshops are. I was telling somebody this morning, it was actually pretty good this time. We had a couple county commissioners on there and several commissioners from Highlands County, and we had some really good dialogue on that 2-hour workshop. So went to Bubbles and Bites, walked around downtown and had some Bubbles and Bites. Fairfax Financial Fire Station ribbon cutting. Very proud to have that place finally open, and congrats to Fire Chief and City Manager and the crew for getting that up and running. Spent 2 days at a Florida Municipal Insurance Trust National Convention. It actually happened to be over in Clearwater this year. That would probably, I could talk about that, but I won't because we're running late here. Lake Conine ribbon cutting. I'm really proud to see that place open up. I think that's going to be extremely popular. I think we're going to start seeing more and more people out there, and I have a feeling there may come a time we might have to put up some lights out there, but we'll see. Hopefully not, but enjoyed seeing the Lake Conine ribbon cutting. And last but not least, I was just going to mention to the commission, anybody listening, I went to the comedy club, the downtown comedy club. I enjoy comedy clubs, and I don't know if anybody's ever been to the one that we have downtown, but it is really, really good. And there's like 80 seats in there, and they've got some people coming in there. Like I went to hear a guy named Bo Johnson who had a Netflix special on. He was so funny, and you look on their wall, all these people that have been through there, and J.J. Walker, and there's a lot of famous people that have been in Winter Haven performing in that little comedy club. So, and they go like 5 nights a week. They have something going on. They have roast all the time. It's really funny. So if you're into comedy clubs and having a good time and laughing and all that, it's not very expensive. Support these guys because they've got a real good thing going down there, and they need us to help support them and buy tickets and spread the word because they're doing some good stuff down there. So I'm doing my part talking about them right now. So that's it for me.
Commissioner Dollison.
I would echo Commissioner Mercer. I've attended pretty much the same things, and so I don't want to go through all that list. With one exception, that was able to go to the new employee luncheon for a brief time. I was able to be there before it went to the high school graduation. I do want to just simply say today, I was able to, privileged today to be at the ribbon cutting for the Jersey Commons. And I want to say this, and I said this to Commissioner Dantzler in brief, but I want to say it to the commission and all of you who are here. I want to thank you, first of all, for just a few years ago, I wasn't sitting up here, I was sitting out there and working with a group of people that were concerned about an issue that was near and dear to many people's hearts, and that was homelessness in our city, not only in our city, but throughout our county, and sought to really look at what can be done or should be done to lessen that, people living outdoors and people living in those conditions. And the challenge was to challenge Lakeland to do 500 units and Winter Haven to do 150 units. We met with Commissioner Dantzler, who was the mayor at the time, and I appreciate you for meeting with us. And I said to him that for some, it may appear that we were pushy or we were somewhat eager, but the reason for that is because we recognize that if it's your mother or your father, or if you got an uncle or aunt or someone living outdoors unsafe in very difficult situations, you would understand the urgency of now. And that issue was brought to the cities. Winter Haven did respond. Lakeland did respond, exceeded the 500 units that we asked them to do, as well as Winter Haven did meet the mark. And today, being able to stand there and to see a facility come online, 68 units, over 5,000 applicants. Over 5,000 applicants. Young people who are aging out of foster care. Some of them will be moving into that facility. And social services are available. Caseworkers will be right there. The new Publix, which is literally, blocks away, is going to be convenient to them. To see that and to know that. I saw the news today because they interviewed one of the ladies that she said, her mom had passed away and she'd been homeless for the last 6 months. You go into the apartments are affordable. They are also fully furnished down to the dishes. And it's not low end stuff. The trim work is excellently done. Blue Sky, I've got to take my hat off to them and many other partners who actually made this possible. But it underscores the fact that, when we show concern and care about those who are on the margins, those who are suffering in our community, that's the heart of our city. That's what we're about. And I'm proud to be a part of that. And I want to thank each of you because you all partnered with us in trying to make this a reality. However, our work is not done. because there's still many more who need a place to live. So thank you again, and I want you to know how much we appreciate it.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Highlight two things. Attended most of the things mentioned this evening. But Lake Conine is absolutely incredible. Great project. Long time overdue, but it is a fantastic project. Winter Haven High School graduation. You don't realize 595 handshakes in a row, but incredible kids, incredible students. What a year for Winter Haven High School. State championships throughout multiple sports. Just a great year for Winter Haven High School. Final thing is, I want to bring up an issue that was brought up to me, and I'll forward this email to staff as well. But I guess there's some issues down on the east side of Lake Howard around the dock. Historically, a lot of homeless have been gathering there. I thought we made a lot of headway there because I remember that was one of the stops we made when I did my ride along with the police department, and saw a lot of individuals moved on from what they were doing. But apparently there's a lot of trash down there, a lot of there's clothes hanging drying on the ropes and on the dock bars, and just a lot of nastiness down there around the dock. Someone went there earlier today, I think, for some family photo sessions, and it just was not a great experience that we want that area to be. So
Please share those if you'll send them to me. Just so you know, Chief Monroe and I have had conversations specifically on that area and some of the areas around there that we're targeting, where we've seen some behavior and some activity that is not consistent with how those spaces are intended to be used. So appreciate you sharing that with me.
That's it. Well, I have 11 items, and I'm not going to go through each one of them. I'm going to just go fast. The EDC board meeting, Winter Haven graduation, the Lake Conine Park, Jersey Commons, PRWC. I will stop on one. I really enjoyed doing the Memorial Day proclamation at an assisted living facility. Public Safety Fire Station, Girls Inc., the Boys Club, and one final thing, I was presented a resolution on the homegoing service for Cindy Price. And that's it for me. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commission. I'm nothing more this evening. Thanks.
City Manager.
Mayor and Commissioners, I feel like I'm letting you down this week because we don't have a grand opening or a dedication of a facility as you've had over the past 2 weeks. I do want to appreciate your comments on Station 4 and on Lake Conine. I will, however, share with you that as of tomorrow, the city of Winter Haven will be the owner of a little over 4 additional acres of land, as we have signed this evening before this meeting all the documents necessary for the closing on Logistics Parkway. So that gives us the capacity to move forward with getting that project completed. Something we've been working on since those grant dollars were first awarded. So I just want to thank the City Attorney's Office and our Utilities Department and Public Works Department for their efforts on that. Final point is beginning tomorrow through Saturday morning, myself, Mr. Carnevale, and Ms. Hill will be attending the Florida City County Management Association Conference. During my absence, Chief Monroe will be available as the emergency point of contact for anything that comes up. I'm only about an hour away if I need to come back, but Vance will be available for you as need be. And certainly you can reach out to my office as well as need be. Thank you.
Deputy City Manager.
Nothing this evening, sir. Thank you.
City Clerk.
Nothing this evening.
Deputy City Clerk. Emergency matters not received for the agenda. Motion to adjourn. We stand adjourned.